Hi everyone, I hope you are doing really well. My name is Natalie and I am the person behind Champion of Coins Tarot. It's been a while since I have filmed. I moved jobs, I moved apartments this summer, so I've been lying low from the internet. However, I have really been enjoying this hashtag that's gone around in the past month called Tarot to the Extreme. It was started by Marlene Theresa, and I am going to leave a link to her original video in the description box. But the essential premise is to look at the different polarities within your collection, be it art, be it cardstock, be it symbolism. It's been really fulfilling and just a lot of fun to see how everybody else has approached this. And I wanted to jump in. The challenge though for me is I am somebody who approaches my tarot collection from a place of utility. Like, as much as I love art, like when it comes down to it, what really matters to me is how I actually use all of my tarot decks in my daily practice. So I am limiting myself in this video just the decks that I have worked with over the last few months in my daily practice, as opposed to kind of going through the full scale of my collection. So I hope that that might be interesting to some of you. There are some old favorites that I love. There were also some new decks that I've gotten just as like a birthday present to myself. So I'm excited to share those as well for the first time. So without any further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and dive in. The first question is looking at minimalist versus maximalist tarot decks. And for that, I've picked the Tarot of Loka and the Voyager Tarot. So the Tarot of Loka is one that is very simple. You have the same image that's kind of mirrored on both the top and the bottom of the card. The minors are unillustrated. They're just circles that contain the different elemental symbols of the suit. And there are also good and evil cards. That's like bonus cards, which are kind of interesting to be able to play around with. So this was initially conceived as a card game based off of tarot, but I've never used it as such. I do use it as a straight tarot deck, leaning more into numerological and kind of like a Marseille style system. And it's really great. I love it. If I want something that is very simple, or if I just want to be able to lay out a larger spread and be able to look at the energetic energy, this is like one that's really simple and user-friendly, and I really enjoy it for that. So that's kind of a look at Tarot of Loka. I'm still trying to get used to this new tripod thing. And then we also have the Voyager Tarot, which on the other end is completely maximalist. These are absolutely gorgeous collage images that were used and inspired by the Voyager like space mission in the 80s. Every card is just so beautiful, so colorful, it's so textured. There's a lot of symbolism to be able to tap into. And I just love this deck. This has become one of my like top 5 all-time favorite tarot decks. It's just so powerful. I see something new in these images every time that I use it. It's absolutely fantastic and definitely, you know, is much more maximalist than probably anything else in my collection. Maybe short of the Enchanted Tarot. Like, that one is also like really impactful and like really sensory, but we're gonna get to that later on. The next prompt is daytime versus nighttime decks. And again, this is focused like more on utility for me, although in this case, like the color scheme is kind of there. So for daytime, I chose the Xultun Mayan Tarot, which is a deck that's new to me. It's based off of Mayan codices, and it's absolutely fantastic. This is another one where all of the suits are color-coded, and the major arcana also, and the minors to a certain extent, create one continuous image. So it's like you're looking at an actual Mayan book when you lay out the cards. And this one I just had to gift to myself because 1, it's been on my wish list forever, and 2, when I was in college, I worked as a research assistant to a professor who specialized in Mayan indigenous religion, and I got to do some work on one of his books, and it was just absolutely amazing. So the reason why this is daytime for me is because of the vibrancy of the artwork, and also because I find that this deck is very practical in nature. Like, I've done readings based off of family and based off of kind of work and just more kind of like day-to-day mundane matters. I don't know, it's just like, it's something that I am going to reference and kind of keep on my desk during the day and refer to for those kinds of questions. It can definitely be used in a much more meditative manner, and I'm actually very excited because I am getting the full guidebook for this deck that goes much more into the symbols and like the different figures that are depicted. Like the majors are drawn from Mayan mythical figures. So there's like a lot more to delve into, but it is very practical and sunny, and this is just, I use it during the day basically, is how I'm interpreting this prompt. Whereas for nighttime, I have the Lilien Tarot, and this deck is based off of Jewish tradition. All of the drawings are adapted from the artwork of Lilien, who's kind of a late 19th century, early 20th century artist. It's all in black and white and kind of preserves the character of the original engravings and prints that he did. And the reason why it's a nighttime deck for me is the Jewish calendar is a lunar calendar, and we actually count our days beginning at sunset. So when I use this deck, I'm using it at night. I'm using it to set intentions for the following day, or for new moons and full moons, like festivals and Jewish tradition. Like, this is what I lean on for that personal religious practice, and just happens to be at night. So this is one where like the aesthetic and the utility, you know, they kind of match one another. It's definitely moody. I just find this deck to be really, really powerful. So it's an important part of, again, that nighttime practice. So the next one is best cardstock versus worst cardstock. And I want to say that like, this is not an indictment by any means about like the character of these decks, because I absolutely use them, but you know, one is better than the other. So best is the Victorian Romantic Russian edition. Worst is the 25th century or 25th anniversary of the Enchanted Tarot, which is like just so huge and unwieldy. So the Victorian Romantic Russian edition has like that beautiful like linen cardstock. When it came out, everybody was talking about super sexy cardstock as a descriptor for it, and it is really amazing. Let me see if I can actually shuffle it like on camera. Like, you can get so much bend on this, and the cards do not change shape at all. It's really amazing. Whereas this version of the Enchanted Tarot, like, I love it because it's so big and you can see the detail. The artist is a mixed media artist, and these are actually tapestries that she sewed and that she painted on top of, which is insane. So you get so much detail with this card size, right? But there's no way that you can do a riffle shuffle with it. Like, I have to shuffle it like overhand, or if I really want to, and I never want to because I'm so afraid of like bending the cards like this, but I have to like shuffle it like that. And it stresses me out so much. But I use this deck all the time. Like, this was my most used deck of 2020. Like, during the beginning of the pandemic, it just, for some reason, it just was the go-to deck for me that year. So it's one that I can work around, and I still love it regardless. The next prompt is, what is our most confronting deck and what is our most comforting deck? So I have Tarot of the Ages as confronting and the Golden Tarot by Liz Dean as comforting, which might not be a surprise to some of you who've watched me for a long time. But Tarot of the Ages is like an original US Games deck from the 1980s. This one kind of started the trend of like multicultural decks where every single suit corresponds with a different religious tradition or a different culture from various parts of the world. So if you think of like Tarot Apocalypsis or like Tarot Illuminati, like those are definitely based off of this deck. I think it's absolutely beautiful. I really love it. I use it a lot, but it is a very confronting deck for me. Like this is one where I sit with a lot of pain and a lot of discomfort. Even if I don't come to the deck wanting to explore my pain and discomfort, it inevitably goes there. It like really forces me to dig down and look at what the root of the issue is and to be really honest and loving with myself. It just doesn't sugarcoat anything. It really, really wants to go deep. And the Golden Tarot, honestly, like, I love this deck so, so much. And this deck has seen me through some of the most difficult points of my life. It's a deck that, like, I could use it every single day. It is just so gentle and so loving. And it just packages the message better than the Tarot of the Ages does, where it feels like just an absolute wave of just like divine love and just like self-compassion and self-care. And it really helps to put like a more positive perspective on things that are going on, if that makes sense. It's kind of like just a giant hug in a deck, which is what you need sometimes. Sometimes, you know, you're just like too emotionally raw to be able to like kind of process the root, and you need kind of inspiration and courage to keep going. So that's what the Golden Tarot is for me. Again, it's kind of like an everyday deck. Like it fills a lot of different spaces for me within my spiritual practice. It's not just a comforting one, but it is inherently comforting, if that makes sense. Just something about the artwork, something about the tone of it is really good. Next is everyday versus every so often. So for every day, I could have gone with the Golden Tarot again, but going with the Thelema Tarot, which is another one that's just like, I could use this every single day. Like, it's so good. I don't know why it's so good. It just is. It speaks to me. Perfect for everyday matters, perfect for spiritual matters, perfect for like going deep. Like, oh my God, it's just amazing. I don't know what sound I just made, but it's absolutely fantastic. It has been on my desk since I pulled it out this past spring. Like, it just never went back. It's no matter what other decks I'm working with, I still will go to the Thelema Tarot all the time because I love it so much. And the other one, every so often deck, is a new deck for me. This is the Marigold Tarot. I got it secondhand, and this is one that I kind of like with the Xultun Tarot. I've just really wanted it for a while, and so I went for it. But I went to read with this deck, and it was just like, it was too intense. I don't even know. It was just like, I had to put the brakes on it and be like, okay, I need to do some research about this first. I really need to do my due diligence, figure out what's going on here, and then come back to it. Like, this is definitely not one that I would reach for every single day. It's going to take a lot more time, a lot more intention. Also kind of a mood reader. Like, if I want something that's going to be really, really intense and high octane, then I would reach for it. But right now, it's not at that place with this deck yet. So I'm curious to see how things will evolve as I continue working with it. Whew, we are almost done. We're blazing through this. So next prompt is overrated versus underrated. And, you know, I'm just going to put that there. Like, a lot of you have been asking me about my thoughts on the Deviant Mini Tarot by Patrick Valenza. I've had this deck for a very long time. I did work with it a lot this summer. I don't know. It's it's iconic. Like, I love the artwork. It's fantastic, but it's just, I don't know. There's something about it that I'm very glad that I have it, and I understand why this is one of like the most iconic modern tarot decks, because it's great. It's just, it's not one for me. Like, it's not one that I want to use all the time, or that I feel really drawn to all the time. Like, maybe it's because I was using it in the middle of this intense move and this like intense job hunt. But I don't know. I'm leaning towards Overrated, but this is one again that I need to devote more time to. I do really want to get the guidebook. I've been putting that off for a long time. So I think maybe my opinion will change, and maybe I will become another Deviant Moon fanatic in the future. But right now, that's kind of not where I am in terms of my relationship with it. But on the other hand, 78 Tarot Astral like is absolutely fantastic and so completely underrated. Like, I remember when the 78 Tarot Collective formed in like the mid 2010s, and they started putting out decks annually, and everybody was like participating in the Kickstarter and really excited about them. But they seem to have kind of vanished from TarotTube. Like, there didn't seem to be a lot of longevity to them. But this one I've had in my collection for years, probably since it came out, and I got back into it this summer because I've set up this challenge for myself of working with every single deck in my collection this year, and I absolutely loved it. Like, I found that even though this is a collaborative deck and there are 78 different artists, that the readings were really cohesive. It flowed together really well. This is one where I could just sit, like with this World card, for example. I could sit and I could meditate and journal about just this one card, or I can do a full spread, and it's so impactful and so informative. It's like absolutely nothing else in my collection, and I really love it. And I've been thinking about making a separate video where I just kind of review this deck, but also go into how I work with it, because I do think that this is one where set spread positions really help. Like, there's so much going on that it really helps to kind of come in with a very intentional spread, or else you can kind of get swept off into the cosmos, like into a million different directions. But I absolutely love it, and I want to see if there are any other like 78 tarot enthusiasts out there, because this is fantastic. I also did try to edge this deck. There's like one card in here that I tried to edge purple, and it bled through the cardstock. So, you know, this one also, like, this might be another one that's a really bad shuffle, but I don't care. Like, it's so thick, but I don't care. Like, I love it, and I'm gonna use it all the time now because I've had such a great experience with it this year. And then last, but certainly not least, we have light work versus shadow work. And I'm gonna be real with you. I've never, ever resonated or understood what light work is supposed to be. I could say more, but I'm just gonna say it's just never, ever been a concept that has been relevant to my spiritual practice, ever. And shadow work, I think, it's a term that I use a lot. I think it's kind of become very ubiquitous within the tarot community or within the spiritual community, and for good reason. I think it's very important to be able to sit with your unconscious self and to do that really necessary healing work, to understand underlying patterns, to understand kind of where you come from, like what your spiritual landscape is, what your mental and emotional landscape is, and how to very gently tend to it. Like, I think that's so important. But also, I'm kind of at a place where I feel like I never approach tarot without the intention of doing that work. Like, for me, that's why tarot exists. The older that I get and the further along that I am with my tarot practice, shadow work is the entire point for me. I'm really in this Jungian camp at this point, where tarot is many things, but primarily it is a tool for self-understanding and for self-integration. That's my soapbox. For the purposes of this prompt, though, I'm going to interpret light work as the aspect of tarot that does create space for downloading wisdom outside of yourself. And shadow work as being drawing wisdom from inside of yourself for the purposes of this prompt. And the deck that would be kind of light work or this outward expansion for me is the Wolfe Tarot. Like, this deck for me is absolutely just foundational in terms of my spiritual practice. Like, this for me is like ultimate divine feminine, like psychonautic exploration, being able to open up to new realms of possibility, new realms of self, like the magical part of you that is able to create and change reality around you. So this for me is very much about like external power and coming into just the higher version of myself, the person who I want to be, and finding divine influence through my experience working with this deck, we'll say. It's kind of vague, but that's true. Like, I'm gonna own it. Like, this deck for me is very much like divine, feminine, amazing, like God portal. And then the deck that I'm choosing for shadow work, for downloading inner wisdom, and it just went everywhere, is another deck that's new to me, but that I have wanted for a very, very long time. And that is the I Am One Tarot. And this one is very Jungian. Like, all the major arcana are different archetypes. The suits are kind of based off of the artist's own personal mythology and very influenced by different indigenous traditions in Mesoamerica. So I want to do some more research about that. But really, like, this is looking at different archetypes. This is very impressionistic artwork that focuses a lot on the way that energy moves, light and shadow. It allows you to be able to kind of project your emotional state onto the cards and really get to the root of that emotion. And the ultimate goal is to be able to integrate all of these different archetypes into a united self, you know, into a one within your psyche. So for that reason, because its express purpose is so Jungian, and because I really do use it and work with it in that way, that's why it's my shadow deck. Even though I think primarily, like, all of tarot is about doing that kind of work. So that is my answer to the Tarot to the Extreme hashtag. I hope that you enjoyed. Let me know if you have any of these decks, or what your experience has been with this, if anything that I said resonated, or if anything that I said didn't resonate. Like, I would love to have a longer debate about shadow work at some point in time, but that's going to be for another video. Anyways, I hope that you all are doing well. I hope that you had a wonderful summer, and I hope that the rest of the year is filled with blessings and new opportunities for all of you. Sending you much love. Bye.